relationship counselor, Elizabeth Overstreet. Everyone has this vision in their mind of what marriage is, how romantic they want it to be, how they're going to raise their children, what the core values are going to be in that relationship. But often we don't tell each other totally what that vision is.
Welcome to Bedtalks. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world right now. We're so glad to be back with this new episode. And like I said, I think me and Kay are on a roll because we've just had some really great guests. And we have another one, someone who was introduced to me through a mutual friend. And then other people started sharing information about him. His name is Antwain Jackson. And he is just very inspirational. So I think this will be a great show. Oh, Antwain, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to have this conversation.
So why don't you tell people a little bit about you and what you do?
I'm a father and, I'm an avid bike rider and gymmer and urban photography. I am an author of the book, The Creative Leader Who Said Creatives Couldn't Be Bosses. And I'm really proud of the book because it ties the creative and the leadership world together. Oftentimes they fight each other. I wanted to tie those worlds together. And then I love talking about relationships because I feel like relationships is a better currency than money.
Tell us about that. What do you mean by that?
I believe that you can get more done with quality relationships than you actually having a bunch of money in the bank. And I think that is from the spiritual side. How can you say you know God whom you've never seen, but then the persons that he creates in his image, you don't seek to know? So the reason why I like relationships is because the more I start to understand relationship dynamics, the more I start to understand God.
Wow.
That's pretty mind-boggling what you just said, because, currency, of course, is supposed to move the world. But I like how you transcended that and incorporated that jewel of not only faith, but having faith in a being that you cannot see compared to the actual thing called currency that you can see. How did you even compile all of that to make those contrasts?
Well, because I know that in movement and in life, that life is about a journey. And let's just imagine what life would be like without people in it. Imagine having a bunch of money, but no people. What would life be? So you need something fixed, but there's no persons to fix it. You need somebody to love, but there's nobody to love. And so I feel like what we're neglecting is money is a tool, but the real currency is people, because I need people to exchange the money with. And I think we've crossed the values because oftentimes what money gives us, or we think it gives us security or personal security, when it's really people that really give us the ability to bounce our ideas off of. We wouldn't know what it meant to express our emotions if we didn't have another person to express that to, a mirror to bounce that off of. So I think that relationship is a premium currency above money.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I will give two examples. I think the pandemic is very interesting for a lot of different reasons. People came out of this pandemic aware, woken, really touching back on things that mattered. People came out of it either ending relationships or having relationships that were more solidified, or really putting intention behind finding the right relationship. And to me, that speaks to the fact that people do need that human interaction piece, that's what makes us tick. No matter, when everything was going on with the pandemic, the thing people craved the most, which we always had access to before COVID happened, was people and social interaction. And I found that very interesting because we were always heads down in our phones. And then when that was taken away, that opportunity to really connect with family, friends, loved ones, people you care about, it's like people really were feeling it. And that's when all the mental health things kept, rising and rising, that were probably already present, but that were being kind of held off by other distractions, I call it. The second thing I want to add is that even when you look at people who are highly successful, I was sharing a quote, a post about this the other day. Will Smith said, no matter how much money you have, it can't buy you happiness. Will Smith is madly successful, right? Yep. He's like, happiness, the only way to really hack into happiness is to be a service to others.
Yes.
And I would add to that, to answer your calling. And so I think I love what you're doing with creativity and leadership, because I do agree with you that people, they're calling this like the great resignation era right now, where people are just resigning from jobs. They cannot keep people in jobs. People are just like, nope, I'm going to figure this out. And people are going towards the things they really want to do. So I think combining what you want to do with your calling, being a service to others, being more purposeful. Those are the things that are starting to elevate. And even when you look again at successful people, I'll go back to that. They always have their group of people that they always have around them. And I always thought that was interesting, because I'm like, okay, you're wealthy, you have this money, but people want to share it. So I think we're so much more interconnected, and I think the pandemic has really made that arise even more in us.
And let me ask you something, Antwain. When you talk about currency, I'm kind of stuck on that word,
Sure.
Because we know that word has and holds value. I once heard someone say that there are three currencies, and it was pretty interesting, and I think it kind of coincides with what you are expressing: time, knowledge, and of course money. And the way that this individual was expressing and teaching these particular three currencies, he was stating that if you don't have all three, you should have at least one. If you don't have the money, then and you have the time, then let that time be your currency to make up for the lack of money. If you don't have money, or you may not have time, you may have the knowledge to make up for the lack of time and money. So when we talk about currency, how does that equate with just dealing with people on a day-to-day basis?
Today, I walked through my church with my state representative and another lady that does fundraising. And we were talking through all of the programs that we wanted to do in our building. I have such a large building. So I said, look, I feel like we need to diversify the space and we need to get some things done. And no money was exchanged today. All she did was make some phone calls and send some text messages because she had the power to do so. Like, she was able to get something critically done for me because of her relationships. So there was movement that was there. It moved the ball down the field for me, and no money was exchanged. I think that what I'm trying to get people to understand about relationships, like your marital relationships and, just your social relationships, that how you treat them or how you value them can get things done for you when you don't have the money. Or sometimes you don't even have to use the money. You can use the money for something else because I got a contact. And so I think that sometimes we're neglecting the quality and the value of people for a piece of a tree.
You see people just rip one another apart for money. And then at the end, they're still broken, even more broken. Even if they gain, it's really a loss. That's good. I noticed that your messages do have, you're speaking in the natural, but you're also speaking on a spiritual level. Yeah. And I think we need both badly right now, because there's a lot of limited information that people are getting, or one side or one way. And I think the value, to your point, is in like kind of really collaborating with people, because we all have different experiences, different perspectives, and it just gives people a broader way of seeing things. So I'm going to read one of your quotes, which I really liked. It's a relationship quote. And you said, "Be careful not to sabotage fresh relationships by antagonizing new people with your previous trust issues." Talk to us about it, Antwain.
What I have found is that many people don't know the difference between standards and expectations. So this is where that quote came from, because I feel like many people have personal standards that they make somebody else's expectation, when the reality is there cannot be an expectation without a mutual agreement. So there isn't a mutual agreement. If I didn't say I agree to that, if you didn't say we agree to that, then there is no expectation. And so what I'm finding is many people are sabotaging new relationships because, let's just say you had a traumatic relationship, they stole money. And so in your head, you're like, yo, I'm never getting in a relationship ever again with somebody that doesn't manage money right. And so you kind of superimpose that in like the stuff that you expect from that person. You know how it is when you have conversations about particular things and the conversation gets heavy, or there's defensiveness that comes up in the conversation when it's like, okay, I touched something, but then you expect for that person to know why it's a soft spot for you or a tender spot for you, or you want them to treat you a particular way when it's like, I didn't agree to that. So just because he hurt you does not mean it's my responsibility to heal you from his hurt. That's not my job. It's your job to heal yourself from that hurt, because I'm fresh. So if you come to me out of your trauma or your pain and you expect for me to be to you what he wasn't to you, that's a disservice to me, because I didn't cause the problem. So I'm not here to fix that. I'm here to be a partner with you, not to be your savior.
In other words, you're there to support, but you're not there to heal.
And I think, I was reading this term, and I've been trying to keep reinforce it to people. It's called cognitive bypass. And someone had termed it that because they said people try to bypass their trauma or their hurt or their issues. They don't want to deal with it. So they take extremes, like they do things in excessive ways, whether it's like exercise or whether it's shopping, whether it's religion, like to the extreme, anything to the extreme to avoid dealing with their issues. And so they try to bypass it, and then they keep like ignoring it, and they get in relationships or scenarios and they have the same thing happen over and over because it's going to keep being triggered because they haven't taken the time to really A, have self-awareness around it, B, recognize it, accept it, C, get the help they need, and really D, just lean into feeling that pain. Like, I know we don't want to be in pain. That's normal as humans, but it was just an interesting concept to me because a lot of times people they skip that, but they're so close to themselves, they can't always see it. To your point about saving someone, that they get in the next relationship and they bring it. They just bring it. They just moving that baggage along. And so I like this statement a lot because I agree that it's no one's job to like be responsible for what has happened. But I do think there should be transparency around it. There should be communication around it. And people need to pause. But there's such a rush, I think, for people to just kind of keep jumping. Some people just keep jumping to the next relationship.
It's like having a new tire on your car and you wear them down and it's time for a rotation and maybe something happens to one side of the tire and you replace it. You get it new, but you don't replace the other side. And what I've seen is what it does is it actually wears down the good one, not the bad one. So that's why they say you need to replace those things at the same time. Right? I feel like most oftentimes people stay way too long if a person does not have a process to actually getting better. And this is for me why I think personal development is so attractive, because I think personal development or that focus or the intentionality on growing as a person is the only thing that you can really see if a person is committed to growth. Like if there is no personal development, and I say this even as a pastor, because I think people hide behind spirituality. They hide behind it all the time. Like, well, I'm praying about it. Well, that's not good enough. Prayer is to God, but work is for the relationship. And so oftentimes people are praying about it and I'm like, but if you're not self-investing, if you're not having a personal development regimen that actually shows that you're committed to growth, then you might be like the bad tire that wears down the good one. And so I would like to just ask them to assess, does that person have the intention and the regimen that you can see, hey, that they're committed to that actual personal growth in that area? Or if not, we're going to wear you out.
Yeah, because I think the commitment does have to be to actually acknowledge what's happening and to come up with a plan to work through it. And because I do think people can be developed in relationships, but they got to be willing to put in the work to be developed. It's not a one-sided, like, I'm here and I'm constantly developing you. It's a mutual, work, because I feel with every relationship, there's couples that may be more developed in one side, but another may be better in another side. And I think that's where the power of that relationship could be really good for both people if they're on that same page of recognizing their gaps, right? And coming together on them.
I think a lot of people come together because they have shared values. If somebody has a shared value and I'm attracted to them, sometimes we lean in more to that, but we don't assess or take enough time to actually see what their character is. And I'm not the one that abuses the word character because, there are some people that just use it too strongly. Right. Because character is something that is developed over time. And so I feel like if I don't see that this person has that regiment of personal development, or you see that it is a noticeable area of trauma that will affect and impact the relationship, I think that should help us take it slower. If we see that person really has the goods and the values, or it should be the determination of, do we have the ability to build something together? Because attraction fades super quickly. So you have to have something more subjective to build on. And I think that the issue is it's hard to find partnership in relationships because we're spending so much time trying to fix each other that we're not building a relationship.
Right. Antwain, you have been just an absolute pleasure to have on. Hopefully we can bring you back again to
I'd love to.
What you're up to. Tell people again about your congregation, where they can find you, your book, any work that you're doing out there, just so they know, aware of all the things that you can do to help people.
Sure. Well, if you want to find out more about me, you can find me at Antwain Jackson on Instagram, Facebook, on my website, antwainjackson.org. If you want to find out more about the Equation Church, you can go to equationchurch.tv, or you can download our app in your app stores. And then the name of my book is called The Creative Leader: Who Said Creatives Couldn't Be Bosses. It is absolutely an incredible mind, incredible leadership mind that I think that you should get and you'll enjoy. So thanks for allowing me to be on tonight's podcast.
We appreciate you. Keep up the good work being a dad. I mean, that's your most important job. You probably know that already. Also spiritually feeding people. I think we can't get enough of spiritual food. That's that's not going to take us to a bad place.
That's right.
And just your inspiration and just your authenticity, I feel it is radiating off of you. Just keeping it real. We appreciate that. So thank you so much for joining.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And you guys, we're gonna end it on that note. If you want to listen to future episodes of the Bedtalks podcast, remember we're on the Anchor app, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and many other platforms. And please remember to check out Antwain Jackson on his Instagram page and check out his book as well if you want to be a creative boss. And until next time, XOXO guys.